I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer it honestly to yourself. How long have you been trying to fix this? Not in terms of years in the marriage, I mean actively trying, reading the books, watching the videos, maybe including this one, and the ones that came before it on this channel, listening to the podcasts on the way to work, buying the workbooks, highlighting the passages, taking notes. Maybe you've tried to get him to go to couples therapy. Maybe you've tried to get him into individual therapy. Maybe you've nudged, suggested, forwarded articles, left books on the bedside table with certain pages marked. Maybe you've even tried all of the above. And here's my question, genuinely and with full respect for the effort that you've put in. How's that working? Because what I've observed in my 30 years of clinical practice is that the approach that most women in difficult marriages take is one that feels productive, feels like progress, feels like doing something, and is, in reality, one of the most exhausting and least effective paths available to them. They think they're taking the easy route, the self-directed route, the independent, resourceful, figure it out yourself route. They are actually taking the hardest route there is. I want to spend the next few minutes showing you exactly why and what the genuinely easy path looks like, because it exists and it is closer than you think. Before we get into this, if you're tired of trying to figure this out alone, the Detox Your Marriage community is a space where you don't have to. Women who are on this road with support and guidance. That's what makes up the group. The link is down below in the description. Now, let's talk about the hard way and the easy way. I want to use an analogy that I think will land immediately, hopefully. And this is based on a true story on my part. Imagine your bathroom sink starts to leaking, not a dramatic burst pipe emergency, just a slow, persistent, dripping faucet that makes a damp patch under the cabinet, or it just is dripping water and your water bill is going up. It's costing you more on the water bill every month. And so you decide, I'm going to handle it. It's reasonable. I'm going to watch YouTube videos on what to do. Because you're a capable person, you've got some tools. And so you watch a few YouTube tutorials, you read the step-by-step guides, you go to the hardware store and you buy what you think you need, and you make some space, you clear out the cabinet, get under the sink, and start working. 3 hours later, you've taken it apart, and you're not exactly sure how to resemble it because what you're seeing under the sink doesn't match what you saw on the YouTube video. And it's leaking worse now. You got water on the floor and the parts don't fit. You're on the 4th tutorial on YouTube because the first 3 assumed a configuration that doesn't actually match what you're looking at. You're capable. You got tools. You're trying hard. But you're also soaking wet, dirty, increasingly frustrated, skin on the back of your hands, and you're no closer to a fixed sink than when you started. In fact, you're actually worse off. And so eventually, after spending most of your Saturday, more energy and more money on trips back to Lowe's to get supplies that you thought you didn't need, but now you need. After all of that, you pick up the phone and you call a plumber. The plumber arrives, looks at it in 90 seconds, identifies the problem, says, I'll be right back, goes out to his truck and fixes it in 20 minutes. This is based on a true story, okay? Hands you a bill that at this point feels entirely reasonable given that now you have a working sink and the next 3 hours of your life back. You see, the do-it-yourself approach felt like the practical, self-sufficient, cost-effective choice, and it was actually the most expensive, time-consuming, stress-producing, knuckle-skinning choice. The professional was the easy way. You just had to get there. Now, Tell me if that story sounds familiar. And of course, we're not actually talking about plumbing here. We're talking about marriage, and we're going to talk about the marriage version of that story. You know that something is wrong in the marriage. You're capable, you're intelligent, or you're resourceful, and so you start researching. And so you read the Gottman books, you read the Dr. Ramani books on narcissism, and then you read the communication books and the book about attachment styles, and you listen to podcasts that explains trauma bonding to you. You watch the videos, this one, others like it. And yeah, it helps you to understand what's happening. And so you try to implement the strategies that are offered. You implement the frameworks. You grade your communication skills that you found in chapter 7 of that book. You set a boundary that you read about in that book, and it works for 3 days, and the atmosphere in the house becomes unbearable, and then, of course, you let the boundary go. You try to get him to go to therapy. He refuses. You go to therapy, and it helps some. At least you got a listening ear. But the therapist is a generalist who's not really trained in dealing with what you got going on at home, because what you got going on at home is not normal. And so you try a different book, a different approach, another podcast season, another round of reading, implementing, hoping, finding, and you're finding that it doesn't quite work, and you're adjusting again. How exhausted are you? Years pass. You're more informed than most therapists that you go and see at this point, and you're more exhausted than you've ever been. And the distance between understanding what's happening and actually changing how it lives is as wide as when you started. The thing is, the do-it-yourself approach to marriage repair, it feels productive. It feels like you're doing something, and the doing something, it's got a bit of a dopamine hit of its own. But it is, in reality, it's one of the hardest, the most inefficient, and most isolating routes available. Because general information applied in isolation without expert guidance tailored to your specific situation, it's the pipe wrench that doesn't quite fit. It's the YouTube video that isn't quite your situation. Trauma is not something you remember. It's something your nervous system learns. If you ever thought, I understand my trauma intellectually, but my body still does not feel safe, this book is written for you. In the Trauma Recovery Blueprint, I introduce the Relational Nervous System Integration Model. It's an integrative framework that bridges polyvagal theory, internal family systems, and EMDR-informed trauma healing. It helps explain how trauma reshapes the body, emotional patterns, relational expectations, and the nervous system itself. This is not simply a book about coping. This is a whole new framework for understanding healing. The Trauma Recovery Blueprint is out now on Amazon. Click the link below for more information. Useful in theory, inadequate in practice, exhausting in execution. I want to add one more layer to this, because the marriage situation is actually harder than the do-it-yourself plumbing situation in a specific and important way. Let me explain. When you're trying to fix the sink, the problem is external. It's stationary. It doesn't respond to your attempts to fix it by becoming more defensive, right? The sink or the toilet doesn't actually fight back and blame shift. It might feel like it does, but it's not actually fighting back and blame shifting and lying to you. It doesn't reframe your repair efforts as an attack. It doesn't move the leak to a different place every time you get close to it. The sink doesn't tell you that your assessment of the problem is incorrect and suggest that actually the problem is you. The situation you're navigating in your marriage does all of those things. You're trying to heal, grow, and reclaim yourself inside a relationship that has been specifically shaped, not necessarily consciously, but effectively, to resist exactly your healing efforts. Every time you get clearer, there's a counter pressure. Every time you found your footing, something shifts. the landscape changes. Every time you bring a new communication strategy, it gets absorbed in the same dynamic that absorbed all of the previous ones. It's not a failure on your part. It's a feature of the specific problem you're trying to deal with. And this is why general information, however good, however extensive, frequently cannot move the needle in a way that specific, expert, personalized, helpful guidance can. Because the problem is not a plumbing leak. It's a living, responsive, highly specific dynamic. And it requires a response that matches the specificity. So let me tell you what the easy way looks like. Because I think the word easy gets misunderstood in this context, and I want to be precise about what I mean. I don't mean easy as in effortless. The work is real, and it requires your attention, your honesty, and your willingness to look at things that you've been finding reasons to not look at. I mean easy in the sense of the plumber showing up. You're not doing it alone. You're not reinventing the wheel. You're not spending hours with the wrong tool trying to make it work, trying to reach the right bolt or washer or something. You have someone who's done this before. The plumber shows up and looks at the situation and goes, and gets to work. Because he or she knows exactly what to do, exactly what's needed, because they've seen it 100 times before, and they've solved this kind of problem 100 times before. The easy way looks like this. You work with someone who specializes in exactly this dynamic, who does not need you to explain what a trauma bond is, or what intermittent reinforcement feels like, or what happens to your nervous system when his key goes in the door and the door opens. You want to work with someone who already knows, who takes all of that as the starting point, not the destination. The easy way is having a guide, not a book that addresses 10,000 different situations, not a podcast that speaks to a general audience of which you're one member in 10,000. A guide that's looking at your specific situation with your specific history in your specific marriage and helps you navigate that specific terrain. So you're held not in a dependency creating way. The goal is always your own growing competence and confidence, but held in a way that a good guide holds a first-time climber, not carrying you, but ensuring that you're never left alone on a difficult face without support. And the efficiency, this is the part that surprises women most when they arrive. The efficiency of this approach compared to years of self-directed research is staggering. Not because the work is faster in a superficial sense, but because it goes to the right place immediately rather than circling the place for years while you collect more information about its general vicinity. I want to name something that I don't think gets said clearly enough. The do-it-yourself approach is not just inefficient, it has a cost that compounds. Every year spent in the research and implementation loop without the support and guidance that would actually move things is a year in which the patterns that need to change are actually getting entrenched. The nervous system is actually getting more habituated. The identity erosion is going a little further. The woman who might have been found in 2 years of good targeted work becomes a little harder to find after 5 or 10 or 25 years of circling around. I'm not saying this to alarm you. I'm saying this because I've watched it happen, because I think you deserve to know that the decision to get proper, specialized support is not a luxury or an indulgence. It's actually the most efficient thing that you can do with whatever season of life you have available to do this work. The plumber is not an expensive option. The plumber, compared to 3 years of your weekends under the leaking sink, is the most cost-effective thing that you can do. I have some things in the description of this video that I want to point you towards because I want to give you options at every level of readiness. The first is the Detox Your Marriage community. If you're not yet in there, I invite you to join. The Detox Your Marriage community is a community of women that is the first step of getting out of the DIY isolation. Women who understand your situation and they're getting guidance in the space. The link is down below. The second is the RSVP protocol. It's my book on Amazon that provides the most specific, structured framework I've built for this work. It's not general communication. It's not John and Julie Gottman, although their stuff is great. It's the closest a book can come to being a guide rather than just information. And it'll take you further than any general resource has because it was built for this kind of situation, not the general market. It's even got a 6-session study guide that you can do by yourself or in community with women in similar kinds of situations. The third is the Trauma Recovery Blueprint book, also a book that I've written, which is a little deeper for women that are recognizing that, I've been damaged by this marriage. And maybe I brought damage into this marriage, but I want healing for myself. The Trauma Recovery Blueprint is a book that provides a framework that fits this kind of situation perfectly and will be very, very helpful. The link for both those books is down below in the description. Let's face it, you've been doing this the hard way long enough. The easy way, the guided, supported, specific, efficient way, it's available. The entryway in is the Detox Your Marriage community. All right? So I'll see you inside.